Devin here with Linux Reviewed, and know I'm about a day late, but we're going to kick it off, and this week we're going to be looking at owncloud, how to set it up, benefits to it, all that great stuff. So, but first we're going to look at my weekly recommended app pick, and being that we're going to be talking about a server product, might as well look at something like Plex. Now, Plex can be used in numerous different features and functions. So you could run Plex on a server, which is what I recommend, but you can also get the application from the Ubuntu Software Center for the Arch people. I think it's going to be in the AUR. So we're going to go right here. The beauty to Plex is it allows you to take videos that you may have stored on your hard drives, or you guys might use, somehow use FFmpeg to be able to take your video content from your DVD collection, place them onto digital media. Kind of let's face it, the era of Blu-ray, DVDs, it's all gone downhill, I think. So what we want to do here is be able to stream our content, and you can use a laptop. However, the reason we picked this app for this week is, like I said, you typically want to do this from a server, because in like my case, and here, let me take you. So essentially the idea is you would take your video content and you're going to put it into a directory. Okay, so here, let me open up a tab and let me head over to my Plex media server. To get to it, once you install the application, if you install it on your desktop, the application will be available in your guys's, here in the launcher. But if you do it from the server, you'll have to hit the local address of the server. So, my non-routable internal IP here is 192.168.1.9:32.400/web/index.html. And this kind of gives you like a basic rundown of the videos. So I could break things down into movies, and you can add new areas by clicking the plus symbol. And the thing about Plex is it tries to do its best to organize the videos by video type, whether that's movies, TV shows, music, photos, home videos. Now, I've seen, though, where it will mix them up. So if example being, you're like me here, right? So as you guys see, I have some alien movies, I have The Hobbit, and then I have my kids' movies for my children. Okay. Maybe I want to add some TV series. What would be best? So here, let's open up a terminal, and let's do a sudo ssh devin at 192.8.1.9. Oops, accidentally hit the key. Okay. All right, so it'll take me here into the server here, and I could do pwd to see that I'm already there. I'm within the directory that I want to work in, and then we'll do that. As you see, this here in the red is the package I used, but you guys notice I have a movies. What I would recommend, example, if I wanted to add a TV series, right, I would do a make directory TV. Okay, and you'll notice that now we have a TV category. So then I would go to add, and I would go TV shows, next, browse media folders, home, Devin, TV, add. And so now I have nothing in my TV library. However, if I did, this is what would really help you guys. This is what would help keep everything separated. But really, that's the only downside I've seen to Plex. The only other thing is if you have a Roku, you can use the Plex app there for free. But if you're like me and went out and bought an Amazon Fire for your living room, the Amazon Fire, it requires you to pay one time for the app. And then if something ever goes wrong with the app, even though you paid for it, Amazon's not going to support you because it's not their app, and Plex doesn't have any real form of support, which I ran into one time and just had to uninstall the app and reinstall the app. So that was really the gist of that. So this is a great application, and I think this is a necessary application for the fact, like I said, in my opinion, Blu-ray and DVD is going away. So this right here is a way to help you take that huge movie collection you have, place them onto a storage device, and be able to go. Now, I don't know if Plex has changed this or not, but in the past, you would need, you could not use an external hard drive. And it probably has to do with like speed and buffering and things like that. Another thing to take into consideration is if I go to my server settings and I go here, I don't know why it's telling me that, but if we go to, for some reason it's being silly. I'll probably have to sign in. Yeah, it's upset because I'm not signed in. But there is a area that you have to go into to set the stream speed. So example being, if you want 1080p on your 1080p TV and the video that you're using is 1080p, you have to be able to push it out at 8 megabits a second or higher. I think it's 4 or 6 megabits a second for 720p, and anything less would be more than acceptable for 480p. Like 1 or 2 megabits a second will handle your 480p transmission. So that's Plex. And like I said, it was the app pick of the week because at the end of the day, we're talking about services for your home. All right. So let's get into the next piece here. And what we want to look at is owncloud. Okay, so owncloud 8 is now out. You can read if you care for what the differences are. I have been on owncloud, started using owncloud about 6 months ago, and I've been completely happy with it. So it so happens that I wiped out my server just for you guys so I can demo how to do this. I was working with virtualization, but it was a little bit more tricky because you're dealing with, when you talk about virtualizing a server, there's you got to do a little bit more work with the IP addresses, and I just didn't feel like I could make it come up clean and make everything work effectively for the demo. So if you guys go to the download function, now this is a 100% open source product, but you know, it's how do I put it? It's pretty rapid development. It is open source. It's preferred that you run it on a Linux OS, Windows OS, or Linux server. I've seen some of the on the Windows forums, the guys talk about running this on a Windows server, but it seems like there can be some issues that they'd run into, but we're not doing Windows reviews, so no point in discussing those issues. You can come here to do a download. However, if you want the client, typically get it through your repositories, as those have been tested with your OS. Now, in terms of how are we going to deploy this? Well, you have two methods. You have you can use a physical server in the home, okay? That would give you the ability to upgrade storage as needed. It also, you keep your storages where you know where it's at. And then there's no recurring monthly charges for service. The device is just running, it's set up, it's good to go. One of the downsides to running hardware in your network is the fact that you have to punch a hole basically through your firewall, use some type of port forwarding, whatever, if you want to be able to use cloud services when you exit. Now, some people kind of sit down and go, oh, well, what do I really need them for on the outside? Well, if you're a college student and you're going to your university and you put your paper in your cloud, your own cloud, and then you go to retrieve your paper, you may go, oh, I don't have my paper. So that's one of the reasons to kind of sit down and think about it. The other huge issue is you got to have the hardware. Now, I'll let you guys know that owncloud does not really require much hardware requirements, and we'll kind of get to that here in a second. Okay. So we're going to go into, this is another option. Now, you don't have to use DigitalOcean. There's a lot of other services out there, but DigitalOcean is definitely one of the better companies in the business. They're huge, they're growing. And we can come here and you can go monthly or you can go hourly. However, the only reason I would think that hourly would be worth your time is if you're looking at doing, say, if I, working for only a couple hours here and there. If you're running for the whole month, go for a monthly plan. Okay. Now they show right here the most popular plans. They're 1 gig of memory, 1 core processor, 30 gig SSD, and 2 terabytes of transfer for $10 a month. I'd only recommend that if you think you need up to 30 gigabytes. If you go, well, I'd be fine on 20 gigabytes. I will tell you now, I ran owncloud off 1 core, 512 mega RAM, perfectly for 2 people. I mean, never even hiccup once. I never even pushed the CPU. This is a great option, but where it becomes an issue is how much gigabytes of disk space you can get per dollar. I mean, in most cases, when you look at the pricing plan here, it'd be cheaper to end up going with something like Dropbox or Google Drive. Now, if you're very security conscious, then this is a great product for you. But like I said, I mean, really, you're better off buying your own hardware. To give you guys kind of an idea of how lightweight owncloud is, or most of your Linux processes, like my current Linux server I have is a 2.8 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo vPro 2 processor, which is about a 3-4 year old processor, if not more. 8 gigs of DDR2 RAM and a 500 gigabyte hard drive. And on those system specs, I'm capable of running a Minecraft server. I'm capable of running my Plex media server and owncloud all in one, and I've never had a issue with the server bogging down or anything like that. So for those of you who are looking at maybe an old tower that's got like an old Pentium 4 with like a gig or 2 of RAM, honestly, just put a new hard drive in it and hook it up, and you're gonna be solid. You're gonna be good to go. So let's go ahead. Let's do this. Let's minimize this browser here. So first thing you need to do is you need to be screened up to your server, or if you're like me and I run my server headless, it just kind of sits there on the floor. The next best thing to do at this point would be to SSH into your server. Okay. In terms of server options, the 2 servers I typically I'm going to recommend for this process is I'm either going to recommend a Ubuntu server, which is what I'm running, or an Arch Linux server. The Arch Linux server is a little bit more on the complex side. It has a lot of its own issues that you'll have to deal with, but well worth it if you get it up and running. But Ubuntu, in my opinion, comes very well packaged. And the only thing you need to make sure when you're setting up that Ubuntu server is that you check mark the box for OpenSSH. Otherwise, you're going to have to install it on your own and configure it on your own. And good luck with that. So, to make this easier, so I'm not sitting here fumbling around on a keyboard, I pre-wrote out all the commands that we're going to do. Most of them, we'll be doing a lot of copy and pasting, because like some of these, like this one here, I am not going to hand type that out. You poor guys through the mic will hear all this clacking. I will do some of the simpler ones, like cd into the temp directory. Okay, and so this next command that we're going to issue is we're basically going to start downloading what we need here. And you'll notice that there's opensuse.org. If you actually go to the official owncloud place where you go to download your packages, you'll notice that they all use OpenSUSE repositories. It doesn't really surprise me. The OpenSUSE guys, they're all about the play and never about the the fun part. Okay, so you got to handle your key and your release key. Okay. Okay. This next one here is basically adding the necessary repository to the list. Now this is really crucial. Okay, and here's the reason why. owncloud is open source and it is developed by a community, which means that the updates come very frequently and regularly. You don't want to, have to manually pull the package down to update your server each time. This is a secure server that you're pulling, the secure repository that you're getting your data from. And so, you want to keep up. This is the best way to do it. So just like anything, when you add any new repository of any sort, you need to run a sudo app update. This resyncs everything with Aptitude, so when you run an install command, like we're about to, it knows exactly which repository to go to pull those files down. Okay, so there it goes. It's doing its thing. There we go. And then we can just do a sudo app install owncloud. It's going to have all this stuff to install. Now, something else I want to point out, Ubuntu's documentation doesn't really cover this, but the Arch Linux one does. You'll notice there's a lot of MySQL written here. Pretty much all the major Linux distributions today are no longer using MySQL. They're actually using MariaDB. Now you see here, it's going to have me set up a MySQL root password. And I'll just do that real quick. Oh, man. There we go. So let's go back over here. Okay. I'm assuming it has something to do with, from my understanding, what I've read about MariaDB, which DB stands for database, is there was a developer who worked on MySQL or whatever it was very unhappy with MySQL and broke off and created MariaDB. And because it's more open source, more transparent, and because it doesn't have to worry about working with any other major companies or vendors, most of the Linux distributions out there have moved into this MariaDB. As you can see here, we did this, but here later we're going to do the sudo apt-get install MariaDB server. It's just how it is. I don't understand why it's still packaged this way, why we set up MySQL at first, then go back, because you'll see later here in a minute when this is done, we're going to do the sudo apt-get install MariaDB server, and it's going to tell me, hey, we're going to migrate to MariaDB. I don't understand why owncloud's not just using MariaDB, as most distributions have gone to MariaDB as a main use of database anyway. Finishing up here. So, like I said, I would typically recommend let's use this on actual physical hardware. Like a terabyte hard drive these days is like $65, and I'm talking about a high quality one that's probably like Western Digital brand, 7200 RPM, 64 meg cache. You get for like $64. Why not use one of those instead of, say, paying for your Google Drive or paying for any other cloud server? I'm not against paying for stuff, but most of us are Linux users for a reason. We're a little bit above your average user. So set up a server. It takes no time at all. Let's do copy here. So sudo apt-get install MariaDB server. Like I said, it's just to replace MySQL for our server. Yes, go for it. So it's going to go. It's going to just keep it downloading. Then through, see, you can see right here it says removing MySQL server. So I thought it was going to prompt me. Oh, let's see. Well, not mandatory title command, a password. Okay. And guys, best security practice would dictate that your password you're using for MariaDB is one that you will remember. So here it is. MariaDB is a drop-in replacement for MySQL. Okay, which means it'll recognize everything from MySQL, but it's a different database. And like I was saying, best security practice would indicate that you guys are not using your login password for your computer for your SQL database root privileges. Okay, so let's go here. Let's grab this here, which is, I believe, going to allow us to start working in the database. Okay, ask me for that password I created. Okay, so there we go. So now we're in the SQL management for MariaDB. Okay, and then we're going to do a create database owncloud, which is where we're creating the owncloud database for it. Boom. And it tells you query okay, one row affected, so it's telling you that everything's good. All right. So now it's very important at this part here. So essentially, grant all on owncloud to owncloud localhost identified by this password. Okay. Now that password is one that I have created for the purpose of just this show, and we'll end up changing it. But if you look up any guides, like some of the guides I've looked up, they're really good guides for this. When I first did my very first owncloud. And then we're done with the web interface. Okay, so we're done. But anyway, like most of the guides, like at this part, they'll just have like database _ password. Please make sure you actually put your password, otherwise that's going to be your database's password. Okay, so we can now close this text file. Nope, don't want to save it. All right, so we're going to open this up. We're going to open up a tab. We're going to go HTTPS or HTTP because I haven't. You could use HTTPS, but you have to remember you have to set up SSL or SSL is kind of dead, so TLS for your server. And then all you do is you type in your IP address, your local IP address. Oops. And then owncloud. All right, it's going to take you here. Now, performance warning, SQLite. Okay, so essentially it's recognizing it as SQLite, but basically what it's saying is if this is a major corporation with thousands of employees, you're best off using a full-fledged SQL database. Whereas what we're using is kind of, MariaDB is not an embedded database, but it's not much better because we didn't actually take any real time to set it up. And you'll see that for a lot of other applications, like at my work we use Spark IM client, and the client we use on the server has an embedded database, and it's fine up to 1,000 users. Anything over 1,000 users, they recommend you building a full database for it. So at this next screen, we're going to do the create an admin account. So I'm going to do devng. I'm going to create a new password. Okay. And remember, you want to create a password that's like relatively strong. All right, so this here is just telling you that you can do your desktop app. You can get it from Google Play or the Apple Store. If you do decide to run this full-fledged, like be able to go out in town, do things like that, and be able to run it on your Android device, it is $1.99 for the app. But you know what, guys? Go for the $1.99 app. It's not like you're paying anything for the software, here being used on the server or the client side. So default, you get documents, photos, and then the owncloud manual. We can click on it. They do have, the PDF viewer. And as you see, there's a lot of great content. And the beauty of it is, seriously, being that this is a full cloud service running, 72 pages isn't really that bad. To get back, you could back arrow, but the preferred way is go Files, click here. Okay. Now we can look at the owncloud interface as itself. So this is everything you're capable of getting. You're just like most, you're able to do an upload, and you can do a maximum of 513 megabytes, which is really good because the simple fact is anything over that you'd want to use a physical desktop client. And for those of you who are like, well, what about the desktop client? The desktop client is really no different, in my opinion, in terms of how it works as Dropbox. So if you're familiar with Dropbox, you'll be very familiar with the desktop client. Okay. We can search for content here. You can come in here, and this is where you get to do library management. So we can come here into the personal, and we can create a new password, create a new username, set up an email, okay, that will allow you for password recovery. I mean, you can come in and do your notifications. I mean, there's a lot of really great stuff. SSL root certificates, really nice. Now, if you're like most people, you're like, okay, but I've got more than one person in my family or friends I'd like to share this with, right? So I can go here, I can add a group, and I can put family. Okay, so we have our family. And then what we could do is I could come up here and I can invite, say, a new user. I'm going to put her in the family, create, and boom, just like that, I created a whole nother user account. I mean, one thing that would be kind of nice, and I haven't tried it yet, maybe if you leave the block blank, okay, we'll try this. Okay, so we have to create a valid password. I think that's one of my few complaints is if I'm not available to talk to that person, I'm not able to figure out what password they would want to use, so that therefore they won't have access. You can go here into the administrative accounts. So you could do security and setup warnings, federated cloud sharing, mail templates, cron, your cron jobs, sharing, security, email server, log. Your access owncloud via HTTP is for HTTPS instead, which is meaning basically all the stuff's traveling in clear text. And then, I can get help or log out. Now we can go in here, we can click on the more apps. So essentially with owncloud, you're able to build extra applications into owncloud. One of those applications could be something, say, like, in this one you actually just install via the server, but like LibreOffice will integrate a hair into owncloud. But you can see like right here, I have activities, deleted files, file locking, first run wizard, mail template editor, PDF viewer, pictures, and it keeps going. Now, video viewer, I didn't even know that was in there. One of the things that you have to be careful with, though, is you want to read up on how each one of these applications are going to work. Because, example being, I screwed up my server one time. There was an application to enable encryption on server side, just around the owncloud itself. It jacked it up horribly. It was definitely no fun. So with some of these, please be careful and think about ramifications when using them. I can look at my not enabled list. I'm running a little slow. It's perfectly okay. But look, I can even set up external storage support, external sites, external user support, LDAP, which is definitely something really good if you're in a Windows Active Directory environment like myself. And then you can actually go by category. Okay. One of the cool parts is because it's open source, if you write your own application, you can add your own app, or you can click here and get more applications from owncloud themselves. Most of these are written by third-party developers. So trust at your own risk. Not to say being that we use Linux, we use open source, we have to really lay heavy trust in third-party developers. But, that's here or there, just based on your beliefs and what you guys think. So here we go. We have this. Like I said, you can come over here. For you Ubuntu guys, it's available here in the App Store. For those for my Arch community users, it's available in just by running through regular old Arch repositories. You're going to want to, for the arch side, it's going to be the package name is going to be owncloud -client. Okay, and it's a pretty light client. So I'm going to minimize that. I go here, and then all you do is you plug in your server address. It gives you a login, or asks you to log in, and then you log in, and then it all downloads and goes here. It'll build an owncloud folder, and like I said, then it's like Dropbox. Wherever you drop in the folder, goes to the cloud. So let's go here. So that's owncloud in the box. I think it's great. I still think it has a ways to go, because like I said, I mean, it'd be nice, if one day a buddy of mine calls me up, and let's say I'm port forwarding, my server is available to the outside world, and calls me up and says, hey, can I start using some of your own cloud? I got some files I need to dump there. And then when I get to here, I can get back to the web interface and use them. I'd say, sure, cool, great. But the downside is I have to create a password for him and then inform him of that password, and hopefully he remembers that password. It would be great, and I'm sure there's a third-party app I can use that will integrate itself into owncloud that will allow users to create their own password upon login, and then maybe allow me to see that password. So if I need to administratively change it, remind it what it is, remove it, whatever, that'd be great. Okay. But I mean, like I said, as far as I've seen, it has a lot of the same features as, say, Dropbox. Example, I could share with other members, other groups. I mean, I've been using owncloud now for about 6 months, and it's been super rock solid. I mean, it has been excellent, excellent, excellent. And for a few of you who are sitting back and going, well, what would I use it for? Well, depending on your phone that you have, syncing between a Linux box and some of these phones these days can be quite difficult and challenging. owncloud would give you a way to be able to transfer all your pictures and videos back and forth. It'd give you the ability to transfer music back and forth, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's a lot that can be done with owncloud. And what I'll do is after I post the video, I'll make a comment below with all the commands I used in case you guys want to use it. For the upcoming weeks, I'm going to be wanting to do a look at a couple different distributions in these next few weeks. I want to take a look at Zorin. Zorin has been one of those desktops that you always hear the classic Windows user uses them. They're like, oh, it looks like Windows, so I'll use it. But I want to look at, is that really the case? The next big thing is I want to take a look at Centos. I've been seeing a lot of talk about using Centos desktop. We'll see how it goes. I mean, Centos has always been one of those, it's like it's a server, use it as a server, leave it as a server, that kind of thing. But I've been seeing a lot of people refer to Centos as an LTS, which I understand is life support cycle, which means, it kind of is an LTS. However, we'll see. You guys will have to see the video to watch that. So those are my next big two videos, is looking at Zorin and Centos. The week after that, there's another video I'm currently looking at that it's probably a distribution you guys have never even heard of. And those are my favorites right there. So thanks for tuning into the video this week, guys. I highly appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.